Okay, we are live.
Okay, so once more, welcome, war greetings to all of you that join us today from very different corners of the world and from India also. Today we have a very international gathering of beautiful brothers and sisters. We welcome you to this special session in which we celebrate our second anniversary of Pragya CS Studio. 2 years ago, during the pandemic time, we had the thought to create a channel in which we can share the understanding of the existence based on the study of theosophy, Brahma Vidya, as well as other spiritual literature. And we endeavor to take assistant of religion, philosophy, science, and art in this journey to awaken the spiritual intuition. And we have been very, very lucky and blessed to have had the participation, the help, and the support of all of you, not only in our weekly meetings of Sundays, but also with your contributions to our channel, videos, liking, subscriptions. We are about to reach 950 subscriptions, and that's thanks to you, to all your support. So in Pragya CS Studio, we are making a conscious effort to bring theosophy as close as possible to the daily life, to try and transform knowledge into wisdom for the well-being of everyone. And for this purpose, we aim to touch upon all aspects of daily life with a holistic and impartial approach. And I'm sure today's talk by our dear sister Esther will be a big addition and beautiful addition to this endeavor. But before this, uh, before we begin with our talk, I want to request, as we request, to keep your mics closed. We will have our session. After that, some questions, answer, comments, and we will close the session with a meditation. And to begin, we will start our gathering with a universal invocation, indicating the unity in diversity and oneness of life, followed by a few moments of silence. So I request you to close your eyes if you feel so, and let us repeat together. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. May this sense of unity accompany us during every step and moment. Well, and now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Sister Esther Pockrandt from Australia. Esther continues to be an active member of the Theosophical Society Sunshine Coast in various official and unofficial roles since 2007. Although her spiritual awakening and subsequent exploration of wisdom traditions and how other cultures do life started in her mid-teens. This inspired her to introduce yoga as an alternative sport at the high school where she was teaching in 1972. This other culture interest led her to accept non-European cultural immersions, including with our own First Nation people in far north called New Caledonia, France, Korea, and Japan, in various teaching and training roles. Esther is what we can call a citizen of the world. She is a polyglot. She speaks German as her first language, English, of course, and she lived in France in the 70s, where she was invited to teach psychology in French. And she also has some knowledge on Japanese and Italian. She is now retired, she's now retired, but retrained in the 80s as a psychotherapist using art, mind, body, awareness, nature immersions, and stillness as her mediums for enabling self-transformation, self-awareness, and empowerment for living. As an environmentalist, this career move was inspired when it became clear to her that change could only happen from within if we wanted to have any long-lasting impact to restore our planet. She spent 3 months volunteering in editorial at Adyar Theosophical headquarters in Chennai in 2015. She now Zooms with other TS groups internationally for her personal mentoring, manages her lodge's Facebook page, which is called Theosophy, Wise, Sunshine, Coast, and Hinterland. She also offers study groups and talks using Zoom also, like she's doing with us today. And she says she must retire soon. However, from these activities, as her doctor says, she's doing far too much screen gazing and sitting, and it shows, yeah, I guess many of us have been experiencing this during this pandemic, but thanks God we have the opportunity to meet here. Esther believes that theosophy is not the society per se, but that it has the potential to grow as a global movement for living by example and in all its operations with integrity, in oneness with all life forms. She says she has much to learn herself and will be a lifelong student of theosophy. Observing nature's ways has been and continues to be her inspiration. The 70s slogan, be the change you want to see in the world. And above all, live simply so that all may simply live, still resonate deeply for her. So, with no further ado, I welcome Esther, who lives in mainly Queensland, Australia, to share with us this interesting and thought-provoking subject. Please, Esther, the floor is all yours. Thanks for accepting our invitation to be part of this second anniversary celebration.
Yes, welcome to you. I mean, I can't really welcome you, but thank you for welcoming me. I really feel that I have discovered a new family since COVID actually happened by Zooming and being included with such warmth. So good day, good morning and evening to you all. It is 9:30 p.m. here in Australia, Sunday. But first of all, I must say congratulations to you, Catalina and Shikar, on this, your second anniversary of Pranya Studios YouTube talk initiative, and I feel deeply honored to have been asked to speak on this special occasion. Me, totally unaware of this when I accepted your invitation. In life, we just cannot get away from making choices, can we, consciously or unconsciously? The warmest of thank yous to you both, Carolina and Shikar, for all your smiles, true fellowship across the airwaves. This, your faces of youth, launching this initiative your encouragement and in the inspirational talks you give yourselves. I've watched some of your YouTube ones. You truly light me up in this Theosophy community. I, as an elder, not perhaps in the society, but in age, seeing the baton being taken up and now in such capable, wise young hands, it truly fills me with hope and joy. And since COVID, the society sure has been nudged into a new phase of life, perhaps a regeneration. The term, a new buzzword in land management practices also, regenerative farming, regenerative health practices, Ayurveda, and more. Maybe how we do Theosophy in this century, how we actually live Annie Besant's prayer of union, which you recited at the beginning. O hidden life, not just a nice thing to recite, but strongly inspiring our daily choices. How to apply the wisdom in our daily living practices may shift also. I shall just upload my PowerPoint. And bear with me. And we have a problem of pollution. Things have changed since Annie Besant's and HPB's days. The concerns were different. Now we've entered a new era. Sometimes call it an era. Some people call it an era. But we know as Theosophists it is all as it should be, yet it implicates us. And is there maybe even an urgency for that now? A different way? A shift in how we do Theosophy? Is there an urgency to review what living brotherhood and oneness means in these days, in these times, and the impact of our convenience habits of plastic and chemical-laden cleaning and hygiene practices have beyond our human realm the microbes and organisms in the soil destroyed, in the waterways, in the air and our oceans, and our own biome. And there may even be an urgent, and if Theosophy's primary objective is universal brotherhood or kinship with all life, this then shows us, when we understand this by organic assimilation eventually, how to live to that end. The Dalai Lama himself now says, we have prayed enough. Now is time for action. Yet how powerful a combo that would actually make, especially when we listen as in the true practice of meditation, rather than plead as in prayer for an outside intervention or for a specific outcome. We know from our study in ageless wisdom that thought, when used proactively and constructively, is indeed a most powerful vibration and beyond measure, and the talk today, and the title is therefore is therefore of a practical nature. What if, the title says, every little choice each one of us makes today is powerful beyond measure? And synchronicities abound, actually. It does make one wonder if it is us making choices, or is it that we enter an energy stream that our own frequency resonates with? Is that what Krishnamurti calls the pathless path? As I ponder and chose the title, also not realizing this talk was this Sunday, that is one day after our national elections, where truly we here in Australia were challenged to choose to vote in our compulsory elections, and hoping our choice of candidate will give a voice to our values, so that to that which we hold dearest for the good of all who we share this earth with, that voice will have an unveiled, unbiased perception, be bravely declaring the principles, stand up for those unjustly attacked. In other words, be a positive, unpolitical influencer over the next 3 years to come. Well, the vote tally has come in, some rejoicing, others bracing themselves. A reminder too, for us too, to make these principles alive in our living practice. They are what we too quote and recite as the golden stairs, and often in our meetings. And we must remember, as recorded in the Bowen Notes, one of the students of Helena Blavatsky, that it was at the request of Madame Blavatsky's study group of the secret doctrine for something practical for living that HPB penned these as a guideline. Because after all the writings about Theosophy are to inspire our living of it. No one can do the living of it for us. Madame Blavatsky reminds of that constantly. And I too am reminded of a book that jumped out at me at a growers market stall in the 80s called Talk Does Not Cook the Rice, a commentary on the teachings of Agni Yoga, a teaching of living ethics. And you know, giving a talk, assembling my ideas to share, although daunting for me every time, and I must say I'm a bit nervous, I'm already colouring up red, to live reminds me too to live an authentic life, to reflect on my culture, my biases. And I fail miserably often. I am no different from you. These are my thoughts over the decades of my little life, me, a mere student of Theosophy like you two, of my own living, of that which informs my daily choices, for better or for worse, and fraught with many cringe-worthy moments, that's for sure, but even those are all good on that evolutionary spiral we are all on. I have no great wisdoms, only a life of reflection and observations and living to share with you through my limited lens, of course. This talk is merely a share of my journey, my heartaches, my seed gatherings, some which didn't sprout and others that did, into a garden of delightful and nourishing diversity. They are my reflections when I have immersed myself in other cultures very different from mine, to learn the many different ways of doing life. To observe myself also as I judge others less or more fortunate, that judgment actually very risky. I certainly see my own culture through a different lens. White, Western, affluent, living actually on stolen land, now marketed at a very high price. When ownership was foreign to the Indigenous people of Australia, rather seeing themselves as custodians of country. In the meantime, also my cultural bias or veil through which we all see others, me included, has hopefully lifted somewhat, but it certainly has not made me complacent, quite the opposite. Once one becomes aware, there is no turning back, you will agree, despite the little distractions I may be drawn into. We all become aware that we grow more sensitive, as in our struggles in meditation, for example, when we start to notice our vrittis, our restless minds, previously unaware in our busyness. But when we stay put long enough, we notice this perhaps for the very first time. And the immediate impulse is, of course, to get up, or in life, to look away. or walk away. And we will end this talk with a 10-minute loving kindness meditation, perhaps after a short Q&A after the talk. If I get through this talk, it seems that it may be a bit long. But these quotes and video clips are what get me back from despair or distraction to get relief, or the compromises we, you, and I make in our need to belong to a social group or family, or sometimes for the greater good of a certain situation. And I hope these quotes inspire you too, to stay close to that stream of consciousness that once we have entered it, will never leave us. And I've actually moved forward too quickly. In light of the ongoing indescribable suffering we see in the news or firsthand, we often fill with a sense of powerlessness and despair. And I'm hoping through quotes, interviews and inspirational music clips, we will explore what Madame Blavatsky and many other sages remind us of, that there is a way, and that just maybe we are here for a reason. Yet living the way requires commitment. Radha Bernier herself, for example, gives us food for thought. Are we willing to give up our having, she says. And David Bohm calls it a problem of fragmentation, a fragmented mind. It is a grim picture, and indeed complex, that domino effect we ourselves, each one of us, sets in motion. Like the ripples on a pond. Jane Goodall says, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. When we look outside our comfort bubbles, sorry, I've just lost my place. So when we look outside our comfort bubbles, it is indeed tempting to retreat from it all back into our metaphoric tents, into a spiritual community perhaps, to no longer watch the news, to declare it is what it is. But is it an accident we are here at this moment, this time, in this experience, this global connectivity as never before in history? Are we implicated in some way, called to take note? Are we meant to see, hear, and feel? Are we meant to see that the ripples colliding with others, setting up a chain reaction that ebbs and flows to the edge, back and forth, and eventually back to us as we drop our metaphorical droplet, innocently or not, unconsciously or not, into the metaphoric pond? We cannot escape. All is karma, even non-action, as we learn from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The world we've created in just half a century would be unrecognizable if Madame Blavatsky and the founders returned. Even Adyar itself, Annie Besant, would not recognize. An estate set in pristine rural landscape, a clean river with ocean frontage, a true paradise then in the 1800s and into the 30s perhaps of the 20th century. Actually, in my own lifetime, I've seen massive changes. Many of you, my vintage here too, will resonate also, where only 50 years before we did without plastic and were very comfortable. Yet now it is almost impossible to find anything not packaged in plastic, even meals on planes these days. Whereas still in the 80s, food and drinks, that's only 40 years ago, were still served on proper trays with steel cutlery and bowls and plates. our acres of greenhouses that feed us the vegetarian food we love. Across the world, too, are covered in plastic, which is discarded after each harvest. It has become common practice now, without a second thought, to plastic wrap to buy in takeaway containers, with hardly anyone conscious of where all that waste eventually ends up. That plastic has a life way beyond 100 years, as that photo shows. And even if it is labeled biodegradable, if it is buried, as is the practice in landfill, it will not biodegrade, as most plastics require the sun to break it down. And even if it does, we are left with microplastics that have already entered our bodies, and all living organisms, seriously impacting the health of the ecosystem and that of our own bodies. We are the ecosystem. Indeed, what have we done? And more importantly, what are we still doing? There is a new environmental slogan: you refuse the primary principle. Reuse only if you can't. Refuse, that is. And of course, the billions of discarded masks and PPEs and testing kits since the pandemic is a catastrophic environmental disaster, many of them ending up in our waterways, in the ocean, where sea animals mistake them for food. And wetlands deemed wastelands are now used as rubbish tips, deemed wastelands. Yet they are essential stopovers for food for birds on their long migratory journeys, and these stopover spots are now also disappearing rapidly across the globe. Can we imagine this? Can we imagine being a bird? Finding these stopover places gone, all because of humanity's growing convenience habits? Is the pandemic perhaps even an outcome of our nature removed and desensitized lives, our weakening immune systems, our contaminated minds? Madame Blavatsky had something interesting to say about pandemics, but that is not the topic today. The founders obviously already saw the beginnings of the changes that we are now experiencing. Is that what motivated Annie Besant to write the Universal Prayer, O Hidden Life, in 1923, to remind us how easy it is to destroy that hidden life? And I wonder if anyone has come across William Juan Judge's startling lament way back then, and which appeared in Letters That Have Helped Me, Volume 1, Letter 1, where he says, "Oh, what a groan nature gives to see the heavy karma which man has piled upon himself, and all the creatures of the three worlds. That deep sigh pierces through my heart. How can the load be lifted? Am I to stand myself, for myself, while the few strong hands of blessed masters and their friends hold back the awful cloud? Such a vow I registered ages ago to help them, and I must. Would to great karma I could do more, and you," he says to us, "do what you can." By the way the image shows a burnt out tree vascular system, remnant of our devastating bushfires in 2020. Isn't that extraordinary? I'm sure many of you also wonder, with the increase in natural disasters and extremes of weather events across the globe, is the spirit of Gaia, the earth, a living organism as James Lovelock proclaimed it to be, desperately trying to rattle and humble humanity and into letting go of its power over mania, which has seriously disturbed its once balanced circular ecosystem with enough food, resources, clean water for all, where what was taken out was put back into the system organically and with no depletion ever possible, as long as the Earth's circular regenerating economy was respected. And Australia is certainly no angel. We are well known for exporting our waste to poor countries to sort for recycling for a pittance. Children and poor people sick with the toxic fumes also, handling and extracting parts from our mobile phone and electronic waste. It is shameful. To add to that, Australia alone now has both the wonderful and dubious, even historical reputation of one more species of animals than any other developed nation in the world, but with the highest historical rates of mammal extinction. All through exploitative land management practices, massive forest and land clearings to make way for large-scale farming, the meat and wool industry, mining and McMansion housing developments. This all may be looking very depressing, yet I think we need to look at these images and see how perhaps we ourselves are implicated in creating this. In fact, the icon of Australia, the koala, has just only a few days ago been promoted from threatened to now endangered, joining that alarming classification for most of the east coast of Australia. And the Great Barrier Reef has just been recorded to have had a massive bleaching event in January due to record temperatures in the ocean and the impact of pollution runoff. Yet, what a contrast back to 1770 when Captain Cook sailed into Botany Bay, as with Mana Blavatsky and the founders, no doubt, when they landed in Sri Lanka and then India just over 100 years ago, 100 years later. And it says in Captain Cook's accounts, the forests fringing the waters abounded with marsupials, and the skies teemed with birds. The story was the same along the coast where now Melbourne is situated, and tigers roamed the island of Tasmania. And in the centre of this slide you see the Tasmanian tiger, the last lonely one caged in 1936. And many of you probably don't know there was a bounty put on the price of killing all wild animals because they interfered with land used for farming and for beef and sheep production. And that went on until the 1930s. And I'm not sure whether that is actually still a practice in many countries across the world where big corporations move in and demand land for agriculture and beef. I won't go on, as it is truly devastating. Suffice it to say that it still goes on. It is not history, and you know that too. It is what is happening around the world. It is the high environmental and human cost of large-scale farming, of big corporations now owning the meat and wool and textile industries, the logging industry, water and plantation rights, the power of international and national extractive mining companies, the insatiable hunger of we affluent consumers in affluent countries, our demand for abundance, addicted to a throwaway fashion culture, everything new and for ease at any cost. Our banking systems, we actually supporting this, perhaps unknowingly. It is the other pandemic no one really talks about, wants to know about. The same all across the planet, in the Amazon, South America, all across East Asia, Africa, India, affecting mainly indigenous communities. David Attenborough just turned 93. And he asks, rightly, how can we create a future where both humans and nature can thrive? Is being vegetarian or vegan really enough in this century when we take brotherhood and oh hidden life to heart? Or is there more we can do? So what to do? Have we thought about our food, where our food comes from, even as health-conscious vegetarians? Did you know that since the new health food fad in the West, classing quinoa as a superfood, Bolivian farmers, such poor people growing the superfood for the health food market, poor people who relied on it for nourishment for nearly 7,000 years are now starving, no longer able to afford it, with the rise in world demand and market value now. But we are far from powerless if we care, really care about people, about life, about animals, about our planet. After all, theosophy is not about escapism, of enduring this desperate to be beamed up Scotty, please. We have our own dharma. We have responsibility. Otherwise, would we be here? And there are solutions that we can embrace, like how we can track the product sources. And maybe this is something we can all engage in. We can read labels, we can check out the ethics and human rights record of major corporations whose products we purchase and that are on all supermarket shelves in every country of the world. Do we know that palm oil is in most food and cosmetic and toiletry items? Did you know that bottled water companies drain the wells of communities to sell on the city market, while those communities have none or are reduced to drinking polluted water? It is happening in Australia. We have the power over our wallets and where we shop and what we buy, who or what we support. We as consumers can drive the market and influence big corporations, but we must explore and investigate. Do a little bit of homework. It is a David against Goliath battle, but when many people come together, focused, change happens. Let us watch what Dr. Vandana Shiva has to say about regenerative agriculture. Her homelands championed the tree hugger movement, the Shipko movement to protect the trees in their village being logged in the 1970s. She's a true trailblazer. Helena Blavatsky and Annie Besant would approve, no doubt.
There is such an intense debate about who feeds the world. There is one myth that without the Green Revolution, India wouldn't have been fed. But the Green Revolution was only rice and wheat, and it transformed biodiverse systems with very high productivity. Monocultures of rice, monocultures of wheat pumped with high doses of chemicals, 10 times more water. Today, our water has disappeared, our soils are polluted, a cancer train leaves Punjab because the toxics and pesticides have created a cancer epidemic. The reality of who feeds the world is the biodiversity that we are growing here at Navdanya. These amazing millets, the forgotten foods that have disappeared from our fields and from our tables. The diversity of crops grown in cooperation. The amazing intensification of biodiversity, where the beans grow with the cereals, where millets that produce 40 times more nutrition and use next to no water give us food security in the worst of times. But because we've had an arrogance and a racism, assuming that only globally traded commodities are food, and a racism that treats everything dark as inferior, we've driven out healthy food, we've driven out biodiversity, and we've replaced it with monocultures and industrial foods and industrial agriculture. Industrial agriculture accounts for only 28% of the world's food production. It is using up 75% of the world's resources. This is a highly inefficient system. If they were to reach 100% of the resources and destroy our soil, destroy our water, destroy the biodiversity, and mess up the climate, they could at best get to about 40% food supply, but with a collapse of the entire ecological base that gets food to us. We are made repeatedly to believe that replacing monocultures of rice and wheat with monocultures of corn and soya that are genetically modified is feeding the world. Only 10% of corn and soya that is grown worldwide is going to people's table. The rest is biofuel and animal feed. Why are we accepting a 10% myth as the basis of food security when we have eaten 8,500 species of plants? When small farmers are still 72% of the food base? The 72% must become 100%. And we can make it 100% by defending our small farms, promoting diverse agriculture, promoting ecological intensification of the kind we see in these fields, with beans and millets coexisting, with an amazing cooperation of the stalks of the cereals, giving the support to the bean. And the bean gives the free nitrogen to the soil and free protein to human beings. These cooperative, intensive, biodiverse ecological systems are the source of food security. Small farms are the source of food security. Gardens growing intensively like this are the source of food security. Making peace with the earth is the source of food security. Industrial agriculture, whether as the Green Revolution or as GMOs, is a war against the planet. And it's an inefficient system. It's going to leave us with neither bread nor freedom. Whereas cooperative arrangements between plants and humans, and within the plant system, this beautiful pearl millet giving a support to a beautiful bean, this is where the food of the world comes from. And the future food must all be like this, a garden of abundance rather than a green desert full of poisons. Giving the support to the big.
In relation to wars, she says, when you use weapons, you control armies. When you control food, you control people, communities. When you control seed, you control life over all the planet. And she's all for seed saving. And a great warrior against Monsanto and GMOs, because she feels the moment you patent seeds, you've lost life. And regarding wars, which are often fought over resources or for religious or cultural dominance, one over another, I'm reminded of Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk who's just recently passed away in January. Also a friend of Martin Luther King, who both spiritualized activism in their brave declaration of principles. When Thai says, as he was affectionately known by his followers, we often think of peace as the absence of war, that if powerful countries would reduce their weapons arsenals, we could have peace. But if we look deeply into the weapons, we see our own minds, our own prejudices, fears and ignorance. We are not powerless, far from it. Let us look at a few more quotes. Krishnamurti, in Commentaries on Living, first series, says, life is a total process, the inner as well as the outer. The outer definitely affects the inner, but the inner invariably overcomes the outer. What you are, you bring outward. And further on, life is not dependent on political or economic activity. Life is not a mere outward show, any more than a tree is a leaf on the branch. Life is a total process whose beauty is to be discovered only in its integration. Indeed, with our theosophy ideals and understanding of brotherhood, how can one service have more dollar value than another? Is not the effort and skill required in every service the same? In fact, many of what we call unskilled jobs are far more dangerous and physically taxing than someone sitting at a desk entering data. Is a cleaner's or farmer's work worth less than a banker's? Why is a woman doing the same work as a man still paid less in most countries of the world? Why is a person mining precious stones and crystals for the new age industry worth less and suffering ill health than the merchant on selling them for an exorbitant price? And here is Radha Bernier, transformation or generation, she asks us. In human generation, the nature of change. Are we willing to give up our having? Is nature not a great teacher, she says? Perhaps natural processes can teach us what regeneration is. Purification is essential, but we also need a balanced personality, because without balance, nothing can be done. Balance means an equal development of thinking power, feeling and action. Annie Besant, in regards to the question, do we really have the power to change, says the following, extracted from Will, Desire, Thought, Action in Consciousness. Whatever we desire, remembering that desire is the problem in this world with our overconsumption, we attach to ourselves. We tie to the self this portion of the not self, and the bond exists until the object is possessed, or until the self has broken off the bond and repudiated the object. It is by thought that we can change desire and therefore change action. But since the will to live is the cause of the forthcoming of the life-seeking embodiment and appropriating to itself that which is necessary for its manifestation, persistence, and form, desire, being will on a lower plane, will show similar characteristics, seeking to appropriate. And we read Mabel Collins in Light on the Path, only the strong can kill it out. The weak must wait for its growth, its fruition, its death. And here is the dilemma of choice. The power of our desire mind. These seagulls having a conversation. Where do you think we're headed? I was going to get some fries on the pier, chips or fries, or you know what I mean. No, I mean big picture. What is the culminating result of consciousness? Where does this path end? And still obsessed with chips, the other seagull says, I still feel like it has something to do with those fries on the pier. So I thought you might have a little giggle. And does this not also remind us of the hero's journey? The road less traveled, where HPB says, there is a road, steep and thorny, but nevertheless a road, which ends with, for those, and related to what Annie Besant said, for those who win onwards, there is reward past telling, the power to bless and save humanity, and the consolation is, for those who fail, there are other lives in which success may come. Here are some words on karma. Why are we here? From the Key to Theosophy. The theme of being, where the Theosophist says, we must not lose sight of the fact that every atom is subject to the general law governing the whole body in which it belongs. And here we come upon the wider track of the karmic law. Do you not perceive that the aggregate of individual karma becomes that of the nation to which those individuals belong, and further, that the sum total of national karma is that of the world? The evils that you speak of are not peculiar to the individual or even to the nation. They are more or less universal. And it is upon the broad line of human interdependence that the law of karma finds its legitimate and equitable issue. And the inquirer says, do I then understand that the law of karma is not necessarily an individual law? And she answers, that is just what I mean. We maintain, she continues, that all pain and suffering are results of want of harmony, and that the one terrible and only cause of the disturbance of harmony is selfishness in some form or another. Hence karma gives back to every man the actual consequence of his own actions without any regard to their moral character. But since he receives his due for all, it is obvious that he will be made to atone for all sufferings which he has caused, just as he will reap in joy and gladness the fruits of all the happiness and harmony he had helped to produce. And in light of that, isn't it true when Thich Nhat Hanh writes, we need a real awakening, enlightenment, meaning a lightening up, filling with light, to change our way of thinking and seeing things, to breathe and be aware of your body and look deeply into it and realize you are the earth and your consciousness is also the consciousness of the earth. a shift in paradigm thinking, not man at the top of the pyramid, but actually an integral part of a whole. David Bohm says on environmental processes, it's a problem of fragmentation. That is, we seeing ourselves separate from the environment. That is, with our civilized and compartmentalized ways of thinking, which is fragmented. In our minds, we've divided what was actually one unified whole into parts, but that's not reality. So if we change how we think to be more in sync with how the universe actually is, then we begin to move and act more coherently, respond to problems more creatively and wisely, so that everything is transformed into our lives locally and eventually globally. Quite simply, actually, it all begins with the transformation of our worldview. Our worldview of seeing ourselves as the environment. And again, we are called to action. We don't have time to watch this video. It's actually an interesting video in a panel of speakers, which includes the Dalai Lama, but we don't have the time. But you might want to note the YouTube link. It is really very, very insightful. Krishnamurti would say, just to ensure his audience was with him finally after all these years of talking, after all that we've just read, have you got it yet? I mean, really? Have you got it? In his impatient way. And in the Theosophy it says, the end of man is an action, not a thought, though it were the noblest. And in Practical Occultism, HBB says, no man can swim unless he enters deep water. We read about the cycle of necessity, that is karma, and the law of cyclicity in the Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga of Action, by Sri Krishna Prem, on the importance of motivation for anything we do. Are we motivated by attraction or repulsion? And I think this is very important when we make our choices. Do we choose out of compassion or love for the greater good, for harmony, or repulsion? And it says, from the chemical elements with their affinities to men with their love and hates, all are bound by this power within the iron circle of necessity. All, that is, save he who has conquered desire and acts from a sense of duty. Swadharma alone. As long as the disciple does certain acts because he likes them and abstains from certain others because he dislikes them, so long must he whirl helplessly upon the wheel. For though he may be of a virtuous disposition and so perform but virtuous acts, yet he nonetheless remains the victim of his own nature. In another text, The Integrity of the Yoga Darsana, the reconsideration of classical yoga, yogic themes in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, not by abstention from actions does a person enjoy freedom from bondage of action, nor by mere renunciation does one attain perfection. He who retrains his organs of action, but continues to remember in his mind the senses, is deluded and is called a hypocrite. But he excels, O Arjuna, Krishna says, who controlling the sense with the mind engages the organs of action in karma yoga. And this is a good reminder for the topic of this talk, the choices we make. What motivates us? It is a trap we can easily fall into. This is the true hero's journey, the road steep and thorny of self-knowledge. We won't have time to watch this video either, but I have already referred to it earlier, and that is Jane Goodall, who says, and who together with Vandana Shiva and David Attenborough, I think, are shining lights in this century. Exemplary contemporary people spiritualizing their work. There are also 2-part interviews on YouTube of Jane Goodall and Vandana Shiva, worth the watch. Very on topic for our talk tonight. But again, although I have them in this PowerPoint, we won't have time to watch them. But please Google them. And she says, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world. True? What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So, as we contemplate this, I think we have enough food for thought on the topic of what we put our money to or not. There's a beautiful film, Baraka. It's actually an interview of Krishnamurti and the Dalai Lama speaking. We have this beautiful video also in Spanish, Somos uno, we are one. Beautiful music, beautiful words. But let us look at this, the great forgetting. I'm of that age before the invent of plastics, before supermarkets and super packaging, where food was sold in glass or wrapped in greaseproof paper, straws were of paper or reed, and loose vegetables and fruit were placed in flutes of rolled up newspaper. When we recycle clothes and all, with everything, even kitchen and food scraps, into compost once they were no longer able to be used. When piped water and sewage and toilet paper were a luxury or non-existent, and yet we were clean and fresh smelling and healthy. Yes, my grandmother was a farm labourer, and I loved her wisdom. Where clean water was considered gold in streams and wells and kept clean from human waste, where one would never contaminate it with soaps or detergents, such was farming and living off the land. Where chemicals for cleaning were vinegar and baking soda, and I still do the same. Where insect repellent was essential oil, and I do that too. Where ants and cockroaches and silverfish were kept in check with camphor, neem oil, and above all, absolute cleanliness and tidiness in the kitchen and bathroom, and all things stored. Storage was in tin cans or preserving jars, where small communities shared abundance of fruit and vegetables at harvest time, where the community came together for the big harvest jobs or repair jobs and the joys and heartaches shared within each household, where medicine was the food we ate and the herbs that grew around the fields. There was natural medicine wisdom held in every community. And India, you are so rich in Ayurveda. It is just a treasure house that I hope will be revived. And my grandmother modeled, and I learned how to grow and preserve food. I wonder how many generations of grandmothers will be able to do that. She taught how to live sustainably and within very meager means, and she sometimes in extreme seasonal and political events, where everyone was content with a small house or apartment as long as there was land to grow food in a community garden. It was actually common practice to have community gardens around cities and city areas, where everyone, if they had any access to land, no matter how small, grew food amongst the flowers and herbs to share and swap. Before supermarkets brought in freezers and packaged everything, where the shop owner served you to supplement, one went to 2 times weekly street markets, where farmers came from the countryside, sold their produce, served you, and poured your weighed choice of veg and fruit into your basket or cloth bag. There were no middlemen. And Anuradha Mittal in Food First movement said that if we all supported small farmers rather than the supermarkets, actually prices would go down because we would cut out middlemen. So can we get a handle back on life to reduce our impact on all other forms on this blue planet? And in summary, here is a list of some of the things we covered. And a reminder, it's up to us, you and me. And the letters of the Mahatmas say they can't interfere in worldly matters, but the work has to be done by those of the world. And I just want to include this poem because there is a tradition of thinking 7 generations ahead, which I think is very appropriate for the topic we are discussing, the choices we make. And it's by Nicolette Sauder. It's about the wilder child or the wilder child, and it's entitled She at the Tip of Her Tongue, yesterday at 12 a.m. May we raise children who love the unloved things, the dandelion, the worms and spiderlings, children who sense the rose needs the thorn and run into rain-swept days the same way they turn towards sun. And when they're grown and someone has to speak for those who have no voice, may they draw upon that wilder bond, those days of tending tender things, and be the ones. We need to start a love affair with our planet and not just a honeymoon one, to live simply and sacrifice our desires for the needs for the children 7 generations hence, for the well-being of all beings inside and outside of our own bodies, insects and microbes alike, so that all may simply live and back in harmony. And it starts with each one of us knowing every little choice each one of us makes today is powerful beyond measure. And I do want to finish this talk before the Q&A with the water song. But I will have to re-upload my PowerPoint because I realize I didn't click use inbuilt microphone. So the sound quality would be very poor. And the water song was released in March 22, 2015 and was written to honor the message of the 13, sorry, I just lost my screen, 13 Indigenous grandmothers to send positive energy, raise the vibration of the waters worldwide, inspire people to protect our precious lifeblood. Are we aware that whatever we flush down the toilet or down our drains, the chemicals we eventually pollute the soil with? The very water we then have to drink as we source groundwater. So let me just stop screen share, reload. Sorry, I'll have to do that again. Sorry, I did it again. It's actually a very beautiful song. Here we are, share sound, optimize for video clip. Okay, here we go. I have the words there for you. It's in English and it's in Spanish. And the opening is a water prayer in one of the 13 Bunjalong languages of the Northern Rivers, New South Wales, Australia, the Indigenous people, honouring the people and the ancestors of this land, country.
Garama, nya yerobo nabe, bogube, nya yerobo nabe.
I wake up in the morning, I drink from the stream. Where I get my clarity. I am a warrior, step out into the world with water as my guide, and I will give this earth something else, something else. Grandma says pay respect to the water as it runs through you like a river. Grandma says pay respect to the water as it runs through you like a river. Grandma says pay respect to the water as it runs through you like a river to the sea. That's where you find me. These veins of life, they sustain us all, cleanse and purify our souls. So as we jump in, remember we are whole. Give thanks and praise to the water as it flows. Abuelita dice que respeto al agua que corre por ti como un río. Abuelita dice que muestras respeto al agua que corre por ti como un río. Abuelita dice que muestras respeto al agua que corre por ti como un río al mar.
Blessings to the giver of life, pure and crystal liquid that nourishes our being. Blessings to the waters, the rains, the falls, the mirror of our great spirits dreaming. May you be cleansed, great waters. May you be healed and purified. May your courses run freely and may you shimmer. We pray our children may drink long of you and grow strong. Grow clear, great water, with our love, grow clear.
Grandma says, pay respect to the water as it runs through you like a river. Grandma says, pay respect to the water as it runs through you like a river. Grandma says, pay respect to the water as it runs and through you like a river to the sea.
So I pray that whoever sees this, that you too will take care of your Mother Earth where you live, and the water that surrounds you, and the water within you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Esther, for such a wonderful presentation, really, with so many small videos and messages, quotes, and poetries. It was really, it was like a wake-up call to all of us, and from us, maybe it will spread to others, that how our little choices in daily life is contributing in the direction of deciding the world's future. Very, very nice. And I think you have shared it with in such depth and with so much explanation. I don't think everybody would be feeling to do something about it, but still
if anybody has any questions to ask Sister Esther, you are most welcome right now. You can either unmute yourself or raise your hands, but only we'll be able to take a couple of questions because we are a little bit running behind the time, because after this we'll have as a special thing a 10 minutes meditation for loving kindness meditation, which is really needed for the world by Sister Esther also. So if anybody has anything to say, kindly.
Welcome, Esther, to our shores. You've become an evangelist here after changing your prime minister, so we all can change things. So it's been a very fascinating talk, as usual. You always lead by example. I don't know if everybody of you are aware that Esther is a very lone voice you can find among philosophers around the world, where she spares no words in speaking the truth. And she also runs a movement for change, which I also participate in a very limited way. But then we need practicing philosophers like Esther to inspire us and show us the way. And as you see, her own country is now being marauded by overseas miners. Although the Australian government says they have no resources, they're inviting people all over the world. In your own country, I see this nature being debauched, I would say. We are helpless. And in neighboring Sri Lanka, to tell you an example, with all good intention, the government stopped fertilizers for about a year, and they went into organic farming, but that actually turned out to be disastrous. So here is a challenge. What damage we have done over the years cannot be undone in one single shot. So that is a learning curve for us, the Sri Lanka example. So what is your comment, Esther, about how do we get back to old days? Thank you.
Thanks, Arnie. I don't know that we can go back to our old days, but we can certainly be inspired by the wisdom of those who went before us. And as you rightly say, it is so sad that example that's being promoted around the world at the moment of the failure of Sri Lanka at its attempt at organic farming. We cannot write over-chemicalized soils, depleted soils within a year. It's impossible. And I would love to see Dr. Vandana Shiva talk about this because she's been practicing this and she was inspired at the same time for this kind of movement in the 70s of honoring earth wisdom, honoring the wisdom of indigenous knowledge. It's the problem in Australia where we've mismanaged the land since colonialisation, and hence we have massive fires that are destructive to all soil organisms, where regeneration is no longer possible because the heat of the fires has been too great. And it then takes a long time. Now it's been 2 years since those horrendous bushfires that burned acres and acres of grasslands and forests in Australia. And this is the same that's happening in the Amazon, when Indigenous people in Australia had slow burns, cool burns, small burns to keep down the load of burnables, so that never there could be devastating fires that destroyed everything, that gave wildlife enough time to escape and save themselves. So I think we have a lot to learn from Indigenous cultures still. We think they are inferior, but they are not. We perhaps are the uncivilized ones who don't know how to respect. So Arnie, yes, it saddened me extraordinarily when I saw the propaganda against organic farming due to that failure in Sri Lanka after just such a short time of abusing the land.
Also,
My
not to
Thank you,
mention, the effect of Corona, because due to Corona lockdown, whatever experiment the government did could not came along as what they thought. So, excuse me, cannot blame completely the organic farming for that. Thank you, Brother Arnie, for your input, and thank you, Sister Esther. And if we have any questions, please come ahead and ask the questions. In the meantime, we have a couple of comments from brothers, Sister Firoza and Zeno Masterji from Bombay. Thank you for the inspiring sharing talk, Sister Esther. And thank you, respected Sister Esther, for such an insightful talk on ecological aspect of our life. And Brother Eric Stevens also shared that he also composed a song about 7 years ago about his love of water. So the link is given in the chat. If anybody wants to view it later, please, it's available on YouTube. Kindly watch it. Thank you, Brother Stevens. And then Brother Charlie also said, thank you, Esther, for sharing these multimedia presentations. Deep messages. Thank you for that. And somebody who wants to say, yes.
I want to speak up something.
Kirtimanji, please. Yeah. Can you switch on your video?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Shikharji, a very important question regarding the fire, like Esther was telling, is like we often are told, like in the city areas and all these hardened shell buildings are made up and roads are made up. The water leaching problem inside the earth core, like water table problem is there, but that is not the issue. Like the sister told, due to the pesticides, we have killed earthworms.
Yeah.
If you look over in India itself, we have the rural areas which are not cemented, which are not at all, which are plain land, but not even burnings are there. But due to the pesticides, what we see, earthworms have died and no capillaries are there. The water, it rains, it showers as it was natural, but what happens due to those capillaries are not available, earthworms got killed. That water never leaches inside and it washes away from above surface. So earthworm problem, the water problem, basically inside the rural areas of the India is just due to that. See, we are all intact all together. The nature itself, we are all binded together. Nothing is beyond that. Even the water problem, the biggest water problem around the globe, is due to that also. That I wanted to tell.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much for that comment. And my dream is that Adyar itself starts to use those simple cleaning products that I had at the end of my PowerPoint. You can do so much with vinegar.
Totally. And I was going to say that when you shared those things like neem oil and camphor, we still use those in Adyar, and pesticides are still not allowed to be used in the campus of Adyar. And really, that's why Adyar is such a place where we learn to be in harmony with the nature. And
the cleaning products, I think, that are used, for example, at LBC, we don't need to go to the supermarket was it a Nilgiri? What is it called?
There is Nilgiris also.
Yes, but instead use vinegar. It is a wonderful cleaning product. It's a disinfectant and so on. So if we would save a lot of money in Adyar itself on campus, and as Mr. Kirtiman Singh said, when we use high chemicals for cleaning, we also kill the microorganisms in the soil. and they are what maintains soil health. They allow for water to be absorbed, and they then are able to recycle our waste if it is organic.
Totally. And this gives us the idea that how important is the smallest creature in this whole chain of nature. I mean, if one insect is missing, it can disrupt the whole chain on the planet. So we'll take a final comment from Sister Vimal, a quick comment, and then we proceed.
No, it's such a heartwarming presentation, and there's just no words to describe what I'm feeling now after hearing you. But like I just wanted to say, your experience in Adyar, yeah, the river. So the good news is that for the last few years, even during the pandemic, the current Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu walks inside the campus. He likes walking inside the campus. And what has happened is, that the river, all the sewage of the city and from all directions used to come into the river, which has now reduced. They have built STP, that is sewage treatment plants, to contain that. So now the river looks much cleaner. Okay, if you see it now, but it's not perfectly clean.
Yeah.
It's still bad, but it's much better. So things are going slowly in a good direction.
In the nature, as we know, everything goes slowly but steadily. So it will change. And if we all put our mind to it, if we all put our thought power into it, as we are going to do with Sister Esther in the next 10 minutes. So just reading the final comments here by Sister Rekha Nahar. The sharing of Sister Esther is a wake-up call to many. Thank you very much for sharing, and best wishes. And Brother Harinath is saying, thank you for a wonderful session. No doubt humans have contributed 100% to demolish or destroy the nature, not only Earth, but also the space, with the man-made satellites and creating debris there. But okay, he has a question. Can we stop mass extinction? Can we stop glacier melting? Can we stop coral bleaching? Okay, he has a long list of questions. I think, as Esther, if you want to give a final comment, and then we close. Yeah.
Well, we cannot deny that the human impact we have had over the last 80 years has been enormous, even 60 years. And yes, we are under the influence of the sun and solar flares. And we know there have been mass extinctions over the life of the planet. And we know from theosophy that planets themselves have a karmic and a cyclic phenomenon that they are subjected to. And we are part of a chain of planets, and we might call it an organism, a bigger organism, and we are part of one small organism. And I liken it to our own bodies, the heart, the lungs, everything is separate, but in service of the whole. So if we see ourselves, our little units, like we are the bacteria, for example, in our body, if we see ourselves as in service of each organ and the bigger body in a universal sense, then it doesn't matter down the track for ourselves, but it sure does matter for the whole karmic load. As HPB said, we are all connected, and karma affects us all, not just individually, it affects nations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Esther. And now I request Catalina to say thanks.
Sister Esther and everyone, we are very thankful for that very motivating, inspiring to action talk, which is actually one of the main purposes of the spiritual path, to take it into action for the well-being of the entire humanity and all the living beings. So it was very special. Thanks for all your sharings, and we will just keep that feeling of motivation and gratitude to you and your thoughts. And thanks to all to join on this special occasion that was just like the perfect commemoration of 2 years. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll try to keep the spark alive. And with this, we coming close to the closing session. Before that, we will just share the announcements, upcoming meetings. As you know, there is TS Triveni Tuesday meet on 24th May. The subject is Theosophy's Impact and Transformation in Life. That will be Brother Ashok Lokhande in Hindi, Sister Rucha Pandey in Marathi, and Brother Harshvardhan Seth in English. It's 6:30 p.m. To 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And then next Sunday, we have Pragyasya Studio meet. Godly invites you to a talk in English on first step in the spiritual path, 29th May, 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 11:30 a.m. GMT by Sister B. Sandhya Rani of TS Bangalore, India. And looking forward to all of you joining it. And now instead of the prayer, we'll have the meditation, which is also a kind of prayer for the world peace and healing the world. And with after that meditation, we request that after that we'll just end the meeting so everybody can leave with peace in mind and share with their surroundings. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining, and let us have this meditation by Sister Esther. Over to you, Sister Esther.
If you can just settle, closing your eyes. Checking any tension in your body. Focus on your breathing.
Today, to turn to two remarkable women, Jane Goodall and Vandana.
I am so sorry. Just settling, being quiet. Following your breathing. And now let us settle in our body for a couple of minutes. Releasing any tension in your shoulders. In your arms, as you sit in your chair, spine erect. Arms hanging from your shoulders, arms relaxed, hands resting on your thighs, palms up or down, your feet firmly planted on the floor. Just observing your breath as it flows in and flows out. Flows in, cool, and flows out, slightly warmed. Feeling the stillness in your body, deepening with each out breath. And now imagine with your next in-breath, you are breathing in cosmic energy through the crown of your head, flowing down your spine, and into your solar plexus. Filling you with light and lightness. And with your next in-breath, breathe in Earth's energy through the soles of your feet, and equally feel that energy move up through the base of your spine, up your spine, and also into your solar plexus. And feel the two energies with each in-breath mingling and starting to rotate in a clockwise motion, filling you with cosmic energy of love and light, and the nourishing energy, the supportive energy of the earth to give you nourishment. And as you feel those energies mingling and turning in a clockwise direction, move that energy up into your heart center and feel that energy radiating into your body, into each cell of your body, removing any dross, anything you no longer need, and with each out breath, let it go. Let it return to the earth, for the earth to recycle, because that's what it does best. and continue that, following your breath, feeling that energy, filling every cell of your body, each cell expanding, your energy expanding. And as you fill with that energy of pure love and goodness and light, see before you any conflicting situation, perhaps in your own circle, perhaps in your community, and see it come to resolution. Now send that energy out to your country. Fill it with love and light and harmony, so that balance be restored wherever it has come undone. In the plant world, in the oceans, in the river systems, in the air. Now move your attention beyond your country to other countries wherever there is conflict or disharmony, and send that same harmonizing energy for balance to be restored into the hearts of all world leaders, all who make decisions for the welfare of this planet and humanity, so that they will fill with compassion and love to maintain and restore balance and harmony. And now focus on the oceans and the air and all those that dwell in the oceans, in the soil, all the organisms, all those who fly, insects and birds, and to see them restored to balance and harmony and abundance for all their needs. Bring your hands up in a prayer position, but palms only lightly touching, your fingertips also lightly touching, as if all that was contained in your hands. All who share this planet with you, and breathe love and light and harmony into that which you're holding in your hands, a precious jewel, a precious life. You and that life one. And now in gratitude to the earth, whatever karmic energies have brought you onto this planet, give thanks. Give thanks to all and everything in your life. And let us finish with the following, a metta prayer by Maylie Scott. May I be well, loving and peaceful. May all beings be well, loving and peaceful. May I be at ease in my body, feeling the ground beneath my seat and feet. May I be attentive and gentle toward my own discomfort and suffering. May I be attentive and grateful for my own joy and well-being. May I move towards others freely and with openness. May I receive others with sympathy and understanding. May I walk gently and simply on the earth so that all may simply live. And may I know that my peace and the world's peace are not separate, that our peace in the world is a result of our work for justice. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Love, integrity, compassion radiate so harmony and peace reign on earth. Now slowly feel your body, move your body, become aware of the sounds in your immediate environment, and open your eyes. Thank you.